of it is, and so appreciate your patience. So, first of all, I want to thank Julie for her leadership for we are so fortunate as a district to have such a relationship and partnership with our parent community. And really that's attributed to the leadership as well as your involvement in. And so, we couldn't have that relationship without a strong partnership with Julie and the UPC president. So thank you, Julie, for all that you've done for our district and for UPC specifically. We really appreciate that. And congratulations to Rebecca. There you are, you're right there. We're so thrilled to continue that work that has been part of probably more than a decade of partnership that we've had in the district. So we're excited for that to continue. And, congratulations on getting it to the end of the school year, right? We're about a week and a half away. And, as we're out in schools, we talk about, does it feel like we're winding down or winding up? And sometimes you just can't tell right now because it's what we sometimes call the 100 days of May. It feels with all the activities and events that are going on and all the levels of commitment that are required of this, and then plus the planning for summer. So I know this is a busy time, so we certainly appreciate you taking the time to be here today. So what we have for you today is what we call our closing bell. And if you're new to UPC, this is a fairly annual tradition we've been doing for a number of years. And it really serves for a couple of purposes. One is it causes us as a district executive team to step back and reflect on some of the work that we've done over the course of this year. And it also gives you some insight as we kind of pull the curtain back about some of the things that we have been doing this year, both in terms of celebrations and accomplishments and just the tasks that we've been doing to give you some insight into the kind of work that we hope and believe is making a difference within the district. And so we have each of our cabinet members here today that are going to share some of the work that's been happening over the course of this year from their departments. We have some cabinet members also pitch hitting for our curriculum and instruction department. So they'll also be presenting some of that work as well. But this is a great opportunity for us to kind of zoom out and think about we've got a lot done this year, despite all the transitions and wonkiness that we may have experienced this year. It's really a testament to the leadership and commitment and passion that people all across our district has had throughout this year. So I like to generally anchor this presentation with some academic highlights. We want to take it down to the school level because that's really what we're in the business for, making a difference for kids every day, for every child. And so you see some of the great accomplishments that have happened in the schools over the course of this year, things that we're very proud of. But, as I kind of look at this list, it doesn't reflect really the impact that we have every day on every child. And, I've had the opportunity and privilege to be out in schools over the last month or so in my transition into the superintendency. And, I'm reminded of the daily celebrations that happen in our schools that actually don't make the list, but are as equally important. I was just at an elementary school yesterday, and I was in the kindergarten room. And the teacher had been struggling with one particular student for the last few months. She's new to the district, new to the classroom, and she's really having some struggles acclimating herself behaviorally to the classroom. But yesterday, she had the best day ever, and so she got a RISE card, which is their way of celebrating PBIS and behavior. And so I got to celebrate with this young girl who was just so proud and excited to share with me the great day that she had. That's a winning mark, that we don't see on the screen. I was at Fireside, I think it was at the end of last week, and their sixth graders were performing a musical play for their younger students, and they were going to be performing it for the parents later in the day. But it was from their Wit and Wisdom curriculum, and it was a play that they were doing based on one of the books that they had read. And I was talking with one of the students right before he was going on stage, and he was telling me about how difficult and challenging it was to learn all the lines that he had to learn because there was so much figurative language in it. And he had to remind me, like, tell me what figurative language is again. And he told me all about figurative language. and how that was so embedded into the script that they had to read. And so I got to watch a little bit of the play. That's a huge celebration of those kids coming together, working together, choreographed, committed to a passion project that really took their learning to another level. I was in Pinnacle Peak last week, and they were getting ready for their STEAM night, I think last Friday. And so all the kids were scurrying around the hallways, getting their projects ready to display for STEAM night. And they were all excited to invite their parent community in that night to showcase a lot of the learning that they had done. And those kids were so committed and excited about it. It was just phenomenal. I was at Sonoran Sky yesterday and visited with, I think he was a first grader, boy and a girl, who were working on a presentation that they were getting ready to share with other classmates, and they were working on investigations, and they had to identify an invention. That's what it was, an invention. And the invention was gunpowder. They had chosen gunpowder as this invention, and they were looking at the history of how gunpowder came to be. And I noticed in his script, as he was kind of reading it to me, he talked about it being the elixir of life. And I thought, wow, that's like a huge word for a first grader. And I said, well, what does that mean, elixir of life? And he went on to explain how gunpowder in that Chinese history was intended to bring life to the people. It had a little bit of a different purpose than originally gunpowder. And he explained all about it, how elixirs bring life and bring energy. And it was just incredible to hear this first grader. I was in another school, Echo Intermediate, the other day. And this young man, I think he was in second grade, was finishing his 7th module in Zern. So he had completed his 7th mission, I think is what it's called. And he was so excited because he saw the end was near. And he was so excited to kind of wrap that up, but really wasn't excited just about finishing. He was excited about what he had learned and what he had, the progress that he had made. And I think about like all those examples, those are celebrations that don't make the board, but those are the celebrations that are so critical. Those every day, every child, differences that we make in classrooms. And it's such a tribute to our teachers and the rest of the staff and our parent community for buying in and celebrating our students and contributing to it. You know, those events that I talked about, the 6th grade presentation that they were doing with Wit and Wisdom couldn't have been possible without some parent support. That were running around, getting the staging ready. The STEAM night couldn't have been possible without their PTO president, who was lugging in boxes of things to get ready for that STEAM night. Like all of this is all about partnership. And so we are so fortunate in our district to have a parent community like yourselves that are committed to our kids, a staff that's dedicated, and leadership who's like running all over the schools trying to organize that kind of work. So those are the celebrations that really mean a lot to me as a superintendent and as a leader in a district, in addition to those very notable things that we sometimes publicize, but we don't often see in the shadows, the great work that's happening for every kid making a difference. So I wanted to share that with you in addition to those. We also had lots of student experiences. Highlights regarding some of the extracurricular activities and band and choir first place winners that you see there. Oh, I meant to tell you, you know, I was in Whispering Wind too. You see the Mandarin speech competition, and I met the 4th grade teacher who was taking 2 kids to California to participate in competition. The only 2 kids from Arizona, by the way, that was going to this particular competition. We had better and larger representation in those 2 kids than California had with all of their DLI programs. And the only reason that our kids were participating is because they were so fluent in the language. And when I was in their 4th grade class, to hear those kids talk in Mandarin and that they had already grasped a second language was just pretty incredible to hear. So I thought I would share that as well. So those are some other experience highlights that I think are critically important to our students to kind of round out their experience, right? That we focus on academics, but also we know important the value that the arts and the music and the STEAM experiences provide our children. And those go hand in hand. You know, I was in, I could go on about my classroom visits here, but I was in a classroom yesterday. It was a STEAM classroom. And I was talking to the teacher about like how does she create the STEAM curriculum for each of the grade levels? And she said, well, what I do is I look at what they're learning in math, and I look at what they're doing in science, and I look at what they're doing in art. And then what I do is I design my experience to build on those concepts. And I thought, yeah, that's what we should be doing, right? We should be linking the learning that they're having in content areas to something real world, authentic, connected, right? So that we see the value in our children see the value in what they're learning, that it's not just for the learning's sake, but there's value in that learning for something that they're going to do in the future. So we have some other departments and assistant superintendents who would like to share some of the work that's been happening across departments that they either supervise or have helped support over the last 6 months. And we're going to start off with Dr. Lindsay and elementary and secondary leadership. So Dr. Lindsay, followed by Dr. Sweeney.
Dr. Courson, good morning, everybody. I'm Heidi Lindsay, as the Assistant Superintendent of Elementary Leadership. I get to support and supervise our elementary school principals. And Dr. Courson and I started the year meeting with all of our principals to review their year-end data from last year. So how did our students perform on their end-of-year assessments? So for elementary, that's grades 3 through 6 or 3 through 8, so we're going to focus prep on the state assessment. But we also look at the early literacy data with Acadian, and then we have some internal assessments that we do too. And so from there, we work with our schools to develop goals and what are the priorities based on that data. And then also we look at other data as well, like attendance. We look at behavior. We look at the implementation of our district initiatives with MTSS, PLCs, STEAM, and PBIS. And really assess, what are the biggest priorities for that school going into the next year. And the principals develop goals with their teams, and then we progress monitor those throughout the course of the year. And so each of our schools has a success plan. And actually, we're in the process right now of doing all of our principal evaluations. And one of their goals is their success plan, like how well did they meet those goals? And some of those goals are still outstanding because we're still waiting on the academic outcomes from state assessments for this year. And Dr. Holmes is going to talk about that in a few minutes and some updates on when you can expect that information for your own kids. But we know that in schools, the number one factor for kids and their academic growth and achievement is the quality of their teacher, right? Which makes sense, the effectiveness of their teacher. But second to that is the effectiveness of the school principal, because they really set the conditions for school culture and for all the learning that takes place in recruiting and retaining staff, all of those things. So the success plan is really important and something that we're looking at through the course of the year. As I mentioned, they set goals and then they have corresponding action steps. And so when myself, Dr. Courson, Dr. Sweeney, when we visit these schools, we're checking in with them and how they're making progress on those action steps and what their benchmark data is showing them along the way. So that's a big focus of my role. Additionally, we really spend a lot of time providing professional development for our leaders. Everybody's at a different path, right, in terms of their levels of experience. And so we're working with our principals, whether they're aspiring, so not yet principals. We have a long-standing PD opportunity for aspiring leaders called AIM. So this year I think we had 8 or 9 that were in that. And that's through the course of the year. They come after school and we do 2 to 3 hours, 3-hour sessions, right, with them. And they're troopers. And Dr. Courson, I got to facilitate that professional development for them. And many of them are moving on to be TOAs this year. A lot of them interviewed for roles last night. So really proud just to see the next generation of leaders that are growing from within our organization. We also partner with the Department of Education with the principal mentoring, and we do facilitative leadership. So our principals, all of our leaders within our organization get the same kind of professional development and how to facilitate with meetings and work with groups. And then we have different layers too with PD opportunities for our APs, our deans, and our TOAs. So we can go to the next slide. Oh, they're right in front of me here. Thank you. Last time you clicked for me. That's okay, I got it. So this year, for a district perspective, we're really focusing on these academic areas in terms of a district-wide focus. So many of our schools set goals around these areas because it's also an identified priority at their campus. So early literacy, you know, we want our kids reading by 3rd grade. They need to pass their 3rd grade reading assessment. So the early grades with phonics and all of those components are really important. 5th and 8th grade math. Over the last several years, we've seen just not high enough proficiency scores with our students in intermediate grades with math and with Algebra 1, 2. So a lot of emphasis there. And then English learner reclassification. As a district, we need to do a better job with our English learners in growing their proficiency in the English language. And at the end of each year, they take an assessment, the AVELA test, which measures their growth in the English language. And our goal is to reclassify them. So there's different layers of proficiency. Ultimately, we want them to test proficient. But if they come in and they don't have any English skills, they're a pre-emergent learner. And we want to grow them through the course of that English language development. And so we have some preliminary results, and we made some really great growth this year, and Sean will highlight that too. And then these are just some of the areas that we've been kind of honing in on to meet those goals this year. The district had a large partnership with an organization called Project Momentum, where we've had coaches and other professionals, education professionals and consultants come in and work with our schools, with our principals and with our teachers on curriculum development, on planning, instructional strategies, and it's really made a big impact. And we're going to continue that partnership moving forward. So with that, I'm going to switch gears and highlight VIP. And Marsha, I didn't know you were going to be here this morning, so feel free to step in if I mess anything up here. Part of my role also I get to support Marsha and Linda, who are co-coordinators of VIP, which is, you know, I know everyone in this room knows that it is a flagship program of our district, a very organized volunteer effort where there is intentional onboarding, training, placement, focused on academic outcomes in a lot of ways. And so this year, some of our celebrations, we're close now to almost 14,000 volunteer hours, which, you know, this slide's just like a couple weeks old, and we're already closing in on 14,000. Over 78 new tutors were onboarded, and we have about 270 altogether, right? So a lot of people that are dedicating their time to volunteering in our district on a regular basis. We also have a great partnership with PVCC and student volunteers, and they've helped out and high school kids too. So you can see that they're helping out with some of our after-school programs at the schools highlighted there, with our 21st Century program After the Bell, where they're doing tutoring and they're working with kids themselves. A huge emphasis with tutoring for adults in ESL or learning English at Greenway Middle School. And then we've, if you've ever been over to Palomino Primary, there is a real intentional effort with primary kids with 57 VIPs and supporting their reading growth. So it's amazing. Anything you want to add, Marsha?
Got set it off.
Okay, and then I'm going to flip real quick to community ed. So I also get to support the community ed department and Natalie Wilcox and all of the work that she and her team do. So community ed has several different arms. Many of you know about the child care through the mascot program that we offer, and also through preschool. So you can see some numbers there on how many kids that we served in both of those programs. We also offer a lot of various enrichment classes after school, and coming up in the summertime this year as well. And just a plug for both Mascot Camp this summer and for summer programming, we're still taking registration. So if anybody's interested please share with your school communities that we have spaces open for summer school, for enrichment classes, and for math pass. And then the other arm, facility use and rental. So a community education oversees, how we can lease out or rent out our spaces in our district, which gives us additional revenue. We're always looking for opportunities to bring revenue into our district. And so you can see some numbers there about rentals that were processed through community ed when it comes to rental in our auditoriums, and then our fields and other spaces that we have available. So they do a lot of work with that and work directly with facilities to make sure that they're working with those outside groups. So any questions on anything that I've shared? I know it's kind of a lot. I'm going to switch over and hand it over to Dr. Holmes with assessment.
Hey, in the world of assessment, one of the things they're very excited about is the launch of an Edge Climber system, so that's super exciting to everybody. But what it does is actually super important for principals. It is a system that actually pulls in different data points. So think attendance, think behavior, think assessment. Assessment results, and those things generally, those data points live in silos, and this is a system that brings those points together to give our principal better information about what's going on with your students to help them make better decisions for kids and improve outcomes for them. So they're excited about that. Also, one of the things that Jess Carrick did was our director of assessment. She worked with our two assistant soups of leadership to work with all of our principals individually on data chats. That really the intention is to build some shared understanding with all of our principals who don't get a lot of time to spend with each other, really, to collaborate as much as they would like to make sure there's some shared understanding about how we use data to do the best that we can by students and their experience at school. A couple of other just data points. They're very excited that for Azella, that's for our language learners, 100% in testing completion rate there, and for the state assessments, I think it's AASA primarily, right? They got to a 99% participation rate, which you would think, what's the big deal there? Well, that is an effort. That is a pull, because we have the testing dates and we hope everybody shows up, and then they don't. Kids are sick, they're out of town or whatever. And then to try to follow up and organize to make sure that everybody does get that done, that is a lift. So they're very excited about that. And let's bring up Dr. Sweeney, talk about information technology. Oh, nope, I'm gonna pause. I got a little bit more information. Okay. Not on the slide, but I know of interest to you. For our grades 3 through 9, if you've got somebody that's in grades 3 through 9, the state test, just so you know, should come out. You should have access to that in mid-June. And in case you're talking to each other, just so you know, just because one family got the results on Monday doesn't mean you did. It doesn't mean it's not coming. So we know that's going to take. You'll get an email from us that will give you a code to access your child's results. But it's such a great amount of data to process that actually takes about a week to get it all distributed. So, if you hear about it and if you hear about it from somebody else and you don't have it yet, just know it's probably coming imminently. So go ahead.
You can keep going, I'll ask at the end.
Okay. Were you going to ask about ACT?
I was going to ask about if our state is one of the ones that used AI, and if we know, or if we did traditional state testing, scoring.
I don't know what they did with AI in terms of AASA.
Okay.
And I don't know if for the ACTs, AI is the problem. I do know that they are having to recalculate.
Probably.
I do know, we do know that there is some recalculation, that there's needing to be done with ACTs.
So probably.
What I understand is that nobody should be surprised on the downside. In other words, we're not expecting scores to be worse, but we do think that some scores might come in higher. And that is going to start coming out at the end of the month on the 28th. But, give it through the first week of June, if you don't get it on the 28th. Is that helpful?
Yeah,
Okay.
there's just been a lot of, I don't know if you've seen, but a lot of states, their test scores came back very quickly, and students who were like, the student scores are tanked, and then they found out that AI had graded all the writing. So that's all.
Has anybody heard any of that?
Great, I love that for us. Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
From an
Cool.
ASA perspective, but that's for.
Yeah, you should Google that and read all about it. It's really interesting.
In this day and age,
Yeah.
I can't say I'm surprised,
Yeah.
but I hadn't heard that. All right, Dr. Sweet.
Well, he's coming up third graders, so you get their rate report probably by the end of the week.
Cool.
There's a whole third grade, they have to pass the state assessment to go to fourth grade, and so those scores they give it to us, so, we'll be communicating those out too.
Good morning. Like Dr. Courson said, appreciate you giving your time to be here today. So, top of the list here has to do with AI, of course. We can't turn on the radio or TV and not hear something about it. And there have been a lot of ongoing conversations. What's this going to look like for instructional use, student assistance use, business services use, a lot of stuff. And Dr. Osmussen in the back, he's got the parent-student handbook coming to the board tomorrow night, and one of the revisions in there includes some language dealing with AI and some positions being taken there. But, the pace that you're seeing that go, you guarantee you'll be hearing more about that in next year and the year after and after that. We kind of take for granted that everything works. Well, the IT department has kept 30,000 computers up and running this year between student devices, teacher devices, support services, all of those things. Some 20,000 requests for services, and that can be anything from my printer doesn't work to whatever. Through online testing, over 100,000 assessments were taken, and figure that's rather startling. There are 700 different vetted software programs that are used in this district, and that includes everything from instructional to support. But when it says vetted, there's always issues with security. There's issues with privacy. How is that data handled? How is that data shared? So, keeping all of that stuff up and running takes quite a bit of effort, and our IT department does a pretty dang good job of doing that. How many of you have heard of iBoss? A few hands. It's a really interesting program that we very deliberately soft rolled this year. Enough on everybody's plate to not have another mandatory required thing for teachers to take on, schools to take on. So we've gone through schools on a voluntary basis. We had 3 middle schools, Desert Shadows, Explorer, and Mountain Trail, that at some point in the year took it on in a couple of elementary schools. But it's basically a classroom management system for technology that teachers have control of. So they have a roster of their class, and then they can control with just some clicks of buttons. They have choices. They can block specific sites that students can go to, or what's becoming seemingly the more popular way of operating this is to regulate within, you can go to this site, this site, this site, this site. So it really is a pretty easy tool for teachers to use to regulate what online activities students are doing in their classroom. Been very favorable response from teachers who have used it. All of the principals, very favorable response. So we have more schools that are signing up, and we have the licensing available for all schools for next year. So you'll probably see this rolling out. If you haven't heard of it or seen it, you'll probably hear it next year, because there seems to be a pretty big rush from people wanting to use it. The good part, IT has taken on the training of that, and the trainers who are doing it for teachers have it down to about a 45-minute training session. And, teachers are enthusiastic after they do that, feel confident being able to manage the system. So it really is pretty simple to do. Also launching employee recognition for reporting phishing and scams. That's what the Education Foundation, High Tech, and IT. All of you at home, you see the constant, phishing attempts and scams and some way to separate you from either your information or your money. And, our employees get that too, and become more and more sophisticated. And finally, the CyberSmart Art K-12 contest, if you haven't heard of that, that's going on right now. It's open through the 19th, and it's a collaboration between the IT department and the Fine Arts department. And it is for students to generate original art that addresses appropriate online behaviors and safety and security. So it's encouraging kids to reflect on what that means and what that looks like. And so we'll see what it looks like in the end in the terms of the project, but I expect they'll all probably be pretty darn good. And with that, I'm turning it back to Heidi, but I'm not going to go far. I'll do that.
I'll be right back, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so, I've had an opportunity to work with, our special education director over the last couple of months. A couple of highlights from their department this year, findings, special education teachers remains a challenge in our state. So we've put a lot of intentional effort into growing our own special education teachers within our district. So we currently have a partnership with ASU that we've had for a number of years called Aspire. This year we have a cohort of 17 of them. 11 are graduating in May, and another will be right behind them next year with 6. Moving forward, we are having our own in-house educator program to grow our special education teachers, and that's going to be called PVSchools. And so currently we have 6 people hired already, and they're going to be in classrooms for next school year, and we will continue to provide them professional development so they can become fully certificated in special education. And one last celebration, which is huge, 212 kids in the district successfully exited special education this year, meaning that they're able to thrive in a gen ed classroom without the support of their individualized education plan. And that's always the goal. So we're really excited about that number. And then switching gears over to gifted, we also do gifted professional development for our teachers to earn their gifted endorsement on their certificate. So this year we have 20 teachers to celebrate. And they come in at nights and they take classes too to learn how to best meet the needs of those kids. This year we had our annual showcase that was combined with sights and sounds. That was at Shadow Mountain. I think that was back in March. Yep. So that was an opportunity for those kids to show off their projects and all their work. And I know that I was very impressed with the projects, and we got to see that all the way from the littles to through high school. And many of you probably already know this. We had 6 speakers this year through the Gifted Speaker Series. And they had lots of different topics that they talked about in terms of how to best support parents with the needs of our gifted learners. So those are highlights from our gifted department. And back over to Dr. Holmes for PD and federal.
And in our professional development area of professional development, for our Center for Teacher Development, they actually had 200, almost 300 visitors this year, new teachers. Which represents a tremendous opportunity for our teachers to learn and hone their craft in terms of their instructional skills. So this is one of the special development opportunities that we provide for our teachers to do that. And then we also wanted to highlight that we're celebrating 76 educators who completed their 2nd year in our beginning teacher mentor program, which I think about the program that we have, and we do have such a great program, and it is so important, especially for our beginning teachers. I think about when I first started teaching, and there was a mentor program that I found out about at the end of November, and I only found out about it because I was in the copy room, and somebody asked me, "How you doing?" And I said, "I'm doing good." He goes, "You're going well?" I said, "Yeah, it's going well. And he goes, all right, just wanted to make sure, you may or may not know, but I'm your mentor.
That was a different district.
It was a different district. Thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, it was a different district. It was a different time. We are so much more organized here in PV, and we have a small team of mentors who just do fabulous work with our new teachers, and it's so important to help them get a good footing as they launch their careers. So we're happy to celebrate that. Federal programs. Is that you? I think that's with Harrigan.
You, so you've already heard a little bit of information about our English language learners, but here are a few other pieces of information that we thought it was important to share from our federal program folks as well. We have over 2,300 administered tests of the AZELA, which is our English language learners assessment, between just February and March of this year. So that's a lot of testing to do in a very short time frame. We appreciate them being able to get all of those done. Additionally, we've partnered with our ELD teachers, and they are implementing targeted strategies to improve that AZELA assessment proficiency. We did so by supporting 18 new, 14 second year, and 11 experienced teachers, and we did this through on-site, job-embedded coaching, as well as our Aspire training. So a lot of additional work being done in the background with our federal programs folks. Pointer, Patrick.
Yeah. So, I actually have 2 slides of fine arts, and we had to compress this down from a whole bunch of stuff. They've done tremendous amount of work there. We have 125 seniors earning their scale of proficiency for fine art scale, and that's an increase from 90 last year. So pretty big growth there. We have an ongoing partnership with the Musical Instrument Museum, and this year there was a district night, and at that you can see 793 attendees, and we had choir and strings performances from 4 schools. The Sounds of the Season up at Desert Ridge Marketplace showcased choirs from 12 schools. And behind the scenes, the fine arts director worked with teachers developing scope and sequence for K-6 and K-8 art programs. And then the Sights and Sounds event, which was mentioned earlier by Heidi, was down at Shadow Mountain, showcased music, themed, gifted, empty bowls event, 22 performances, 3,500 pieces of student artwork, and it was hugely attended. Overflow parking, we have to address that somehow for next year, but it was a big event, and it will take place again next year. And then back to the Musical Instrument Museum, there were 39 field trips this year, that free field trips, and that's part of that partnership with the MIM. So that's ongoing. It was renewed again, and there will be more of that. So a lot of really great work done there. So back to curriculum.
We know or have been a part of, we adopted and our board approved a new curriculum, or set of curriculum materials for K-12 for science for next year. That just happened at a recent board meeting. So was anyone involved on that committee? I know they spent like 600 hours. It was a big committee with a lot of time researching different programs, brought together lots of stakeholders, and our 2 science curriculum specialists led that effort and presented those findings to our governing board earlier this spring. So right now we're starting the ordering process of all the materials, the pickup of all the materials of the previous adoption. So we're in transition. Our teachers are going to have different opportunities to get trained and get professional development on the new materials that they'll be using next year. We're starting that this summer, and then when they come back to school, we'll offer more training. So next year will be an implementation year of our new science adoption on K-12. HR.
Okay. So the first 2 actually, Dr. Lindsay covered, so I'll skip past that. We do want to highlight, though, for our hourly employees, one of the things that came out of bargaining that we think is a real win is that we were able to advance the amount that we reimburse for professional growth to an amount that basically can actually get them through community college. So that's tremendous. You know, that amount was quite a bit lower. It was about, I think it was down around $300 not too long ago, and we really made an effort to do that. And so that's something that we're really celebrating for our hourly employees who want to advance their career. And some of you know that not necessarily just an AA, but PVCC, for example, you can actually get a 4-year degree in education at PVCC. And then this last one here, I like to highlight this. I like to look at this number each and every year because it represents like how big we are as an organization, how much work it actually takes to get stuff done. An EPAR is an electronic personnel action request. So anytime something changes with an employee, they have a pay change, they get an addenda because they're going to be a coach, they transfer schools, they get hired. That all starts with somebody initiating an EPAR, and then there's work associated with it. And it's not just one person that does the work. It's often started at a school. It might go to a department, and then it'll come through HR and payroll and finance. And at this point in the year, we've processed 8,650 of those. Last year we did 9,850 total. Through June 30th, so we're probably on track to get about there. But just a number I like to look at every year to kind of demonstrate to people like how much work was actually completed by this operations behind the scenes in support of educating our students. Mr. Doby.
In the world of marketing and communications, a really huge celebration. The marketing department earned a copper medallion, which is a gold standard for a public relations, communications, or marketing campaign. That was for the Report Don't Repost campaign, which part of the success of that was the partnership with parents. A big piece of that communications campaign was to get our community to support the message of reporting anonymous threats online instead of reposting them, because when you repost them, it just makes a problem even bigger, as opposed to taking care of the problem when it's smaller. And then we also found that many of these threats had nothing to do with our community, so it was just causing unnecessary and undue fear and anxiety within our staff and the parent community as well. So thank you to UPC for promoting the message of reporting don't repost. There are also some other parent groups at different schools that helped out with that message. Earning a copper medallion is a very big deal. Only a handful are given out each year, and it signifies a gold standard for all of the parts of marketing and communications, not just the part that everyone sees. We have the research, the planning, and the evaluation piece, which is all behind the scenes, and then everyone sees the implementation piece, which is the Facebook posts and the podcast and the YouTube videos and things. So that's a big deal. I'm very proud of the team, and I'm also very proud of our community because together, this campaign actually resulted in about just over a 20% reduction in anonymous online threats in our community as compared to other districts in the Valley. The only thing that we did much different than other districts in the Valley is we're the only ones that had a communications plan to address this issue. So I can't say that this caused the reduction, but this was certainly a piece of it. And the partnership between the parent community and the marketing department was a huge piece of that. So thank you. We managed over 10,000 pages along with our web content editors at each of the schools. So that's a lot of information to keep up to date and all the links working. We also have begun the rollout of Parent Square across the district. This was a huge project. We've actually been working on it since not this past April, but the April prior in 2025. So we're really happy to see that it's out and being used. Parent Square, just from about the beginning of January, has facilitated over 18,000 direct messages, which is something that we couldn't have accomplished prior to Parent Square. This means teachers and staff can essentially text or DM a parent or a high school student in a safe environment for both the student, the family, and staff members. So that's a lot of messages that are going out. Our social media archiving software, social media is a public record. If you're not aware of that, we are required to maintain records of every piece of social media content, whether we've created it or not. So if we post something and someone puts a comment on that post, we're responsible for maintaining that comment. Even if the person goes in and deletes it 10 seconds later, we're still responsible for it. You can imagine, without some kind of archiving software, we would have staff up at all hours of the night saving posts. So, to date, since we implemented that software, we've archived over 271,000 pieces of social media data, which is an incredible amount of data. Along with our social media, we have increased, and this is also a community celebration, impressions have gone up about 22%. That means more people are seeing the stories that are coming out of our schools. Part of that is onboarding schools and helping them use social media more effectively and more efficiently. So hopefully you'll see your school using social media a little bit more. And then the other huge part of our department is media relations and dealing with the media. We deal with both positive and negative stories. We pitch stories to the news all the time. And then we track it with a couple different numbers. We equate it to ad value. So if I were to purchase ads at the time slots we received coverage, we track that value. This year we've earned about $315,000 worth of essentially free advertising. That's for both positive and negative. If you just do the positive, we've actually earned more, because when it's a negative story, we take away that ad value. In Arizona, we've reached 3.2 million people, and nationwide for positive and mostly negative stories, unfortunately on that one is 122,000 viewers nationwide. So a lot of people have been exposed to PV in a lot of ways this year, and part of it is in part to you. This is my annual pitch. It is free. It takes a very short amount of time, but liking, commenting, and especially sharing social media from your schools in the district is a way for us to game the social media algorithms to our advantage, so we don't have to pay Meta to place ads. So thank you for doing that for the district and sharing the PV school story. Thank you.
When he says the like and share part, he means the positive story. Please. Okay, I am gonna finish this out with our operational side of the district. This is things like making sure the bills are paid, making sure we're paying our staff, that the lights are on, that we're feeding our students, that we're transporting our students, and things of that nature. So starting with our facilities and construction, they have had a continued focus on their efficiency, their communication, and their professionalism in that department. That started when Dr. Drew Davis started as the director there about 3 years ago, almost 3 years ago now. And all of those things have improved significantly under his leadership and with the help of his team to ensure that they're doing that. Also, they've closed 11,000 maintenance work orders so far this year, and their department is currently staffed at 95%. And I have verified that even includes the plumbers, which is important. With bond and construction, the last summer, fiscal year 25, which includes really as part of our fiscal year 25, 26, or school year 25, 26, they completed $39 million in bond projects. And then they have scheduled about $30 million in bond projects for fiscal year 26. And that doesn't come to us without the fact that our communities have voted to approve this bond. This bond came to us back in 2023. And we very much appreciate having the ability to do all of these projects at our school sites. That will be over 200 bond projects this summer, so a number of bond projects happening across the district. And we are also seeking $2.6 million in what is called the Arizona School Building Renewal Grant through the School Facilities Division. We have the ability to write in for grants. It is competitive. There is only so much money. But we are seeking $2.6 million, and that's $2.6 million that the district doesn't have to use, and it's bond dollars. We can use those bond dollars for something else. And then we've also been awarded over $300,000 in APS rebates in spring of 2026, and that's because of things we've implemented that they have the rebate program for. With finance and payroll, we look to them for compliance when we have our audit, in addition to doing all of the paying of the bills and making sure that our staff are being paid. We had no significant deficiencies or material weakness. And are there any finance or audit people in this room? No. Yes. You know that that's basically the happiest an auditor can get about something. That's about as positive as they get. And there is really nothing beyond that. So. And then in addition, we have something called USFR compliance questionnaires that we have to answer. There's 171 questions that we go through with our auditors. USFR stands for Uniform System of Financial Records. That is one of the primary guiding, documents that we have to use in school finance, along with federal laws and Arizona state laws and generally accepted accounting principles and other guiding documents. And with that, we got 163 that we answered yes on, which is about a 95%, and that's a good solid A, so we appreciate that. Most districts in the state of Arizona have about 18 to 20 questions that they answer no to, so we're doing far better than most districts in the state of Arizona. Moving on to nutrition and wellness, we successfully served 9,000 lunches and 3,300 breakfasts daily. Very important for the students who are receiving those. We've also started to administer our food protection manager exam in-house. That saves our employees from having to go to an outside agency to have to take that exam, and we have somebody trained who is able to give that exam in-house, and it just gets them to be able to move along quicker to become a manager. We also implemented something pretty cool called the Second Chance Breakfast Program at Greenway Middle School. And sometimes middle school students are like rushing into school at the last minute and maybe didn't have time to grab their breakfast. So between their first and second period, they have the opportunity, there's a kiosk in the courtyard there, and they're able to grab a second breakfast and take that to class with them, making sure that they get that very important meal of the day. And that has been very successful at Greenway, so hopefully we'll be able to implement that at some other campuses. And then finally, we have moved, this is the second year we've had some schools in what's called the Community Eligibility Program, or what you will hear us refer to as CEP. That allows us to be able to feed all of the students on the campus, regardless of their free and reduced lunch status, free breakfast and free lunch every day of the year. And we have that for 10 schools. We're moving to 12 schools next year. And then they don't have to fill out the forms every year like we have to have them do at schools that aren't able to be CEP. You have to have a pretty significant free and reduced lunch count to be able to get that CEP. So we're continuing that and have been approved for that from ADE for 26-27. Moving into purchasing, we issued more than 12 new contracts. Those contracts tend to be anywhere between 40 and 60 pages worth of very detailed legality, scope of work type of stuff. So 12 may not sound like a lot, but that is a significant amount of work for our purchasing department. Also, we're a lead agency with 1GPA. 1GPA is a cooperative purchasing agency in the state of Arizona, and they operate in other states as well. And when we work with them as a lead agency to say, it's a very simple example, procure pencils, then we're working to procure pencils for other districts in the state of Arizona who want to participate in that. So the vendors who respond to that say, ooh, we're going to get a lot of people buying from us. We can therefore decrease the price on that and give them the best price possible. So we are rebidding and awarding other cooperative contracts, and that's good news for us, along with some other cooperative agencies that we work with. We processed more than 11,000 purchase orders this year, and some of those purchase orders are very simple and very small amounts, and some of them get more complicated when we deal with things like Amazon, when schools are buying all kinds of different items through Amazon, or a APS. We have all of our utilities, and it's not usually just one meter per school site, it's multiple meters. So there are various levels of complexity of our purchase orders. We've also onboarded hundreds of new vendors. On occasion, we have somebody we haven't used before, and we have a school site or a department that wants to use a new vendor. We want to give them that opportunity. We process those new vendors through, and that takes a little bit of work. And then finally, in procurement, we're in phase 2 of a district refurbishment at our school sites, and that's ordering new furniture for various schools. That was part of our bond project that was approved again in 2023. The 2019 bond project had furniture refresh in it too. That focused on high schools. We're now down with middle schools and elementary schools and refurnishing some of those. Transportation. This time last year, we were in a much more dire situation, but we were on like an upswing. We're really on an upswing now. We're in a much, much better situation. We currently have 65 drivers and 25 bus aides. Things are mostly running smoothly. Transportation will always have hiccups, but far fewer hiccups than we did have. In January of last year, January of 2025, we only had 39 drivers at that point in time. So we're in a much better set of circumstances than we were then. I have no doubt this number is different from the 2 weeks ago that they gave it to me, because this is a time of year where they're doing all the field trips. But at that time, we had done 1,714 field trips. I'm sure they're approaching 2,000 and up there at this point in time. And then, as always, we continue to look for new drivers, new aides. We do still have vacancies in those areas. We do have people who are hiring this year. So if you know of anyone who wants to make approximately 23 and what an hour? 23 something an hour. Close to 24 an hour. Yeah, close to 24 an hour. We do the training here. We will get them trained. They will have their CDL and they can help us transport kids. And with that, I will turn it back to Dr. Courson.
Yeah, thank you, Jill, and thank you to all of them. I appreciate them not only representing some of the work of their departments, but the departments that they've been providing support with over the last couple of months. You know, I would kind of end with, you know, that's a lot of things up there that is a testament to the amount of work, but I'm also inspired really by the intangible assets behind that work, right? The level of strategic thinking that goes into making these things happen. The level of commitment on the part of our leaders and other people who are seeing themselves beyond the work that they're doing and contributing to something greater than what they're doing. Getting everybody to kind of row in the same direction, right? So that we're accomplishing the big things that are important to us. Those kind of intangible things that you don't necessarily show itself in the numbers is really the things that make the numbers work. So I appreciate all the effort of our executive leadership team and all the directors and principals who contribute this every day, and all the people behind the scenes who are doing those EPARs and the purchase orders and the routing of transportation that makes all of that happen. Because there's a commitment. There's a commitment to them providing the best opportunity and experience for our children in our district, which is paramount to everything that we do and the lens that we try to look at every time we make a decision or choose a task to take on. It's through that lens of what's going to make a difference for the kids in our district. So thank you for allowing us to indulge in sharing that. I hope that you found one of those data points either interesting or validating or connected to something that you are doing at your level within our school district, whether you're working in a PTO or whether you're just here as a parent. We hope that something in that data was meaningful for you. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Julie? Yeah? Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, thank you. That was wonderful. We are running a little behind on we had.